The story opens with John waking abruptly from a deep-induced sleep aboard the spacecraft Odyssey 1. The ship is cutting through the dark toward Titan, Saturn's largest moon. Humanity has pushed itself to the edge, Earth is nearly ruined, and Titan, with its vast oceans of methane, has become the next desperate hope. The plan is simple: find new resources before the planet collapses completely. John is one of the first crew members chosen for this pioneering mission. To shorten the huge distance, the team relies on a maneuver called slingshot, using Saturn's enormous gravity to catapult the ship forward at extreme speed. Even with this trick, the journey is long and exhausting. Only 3 people are on board: Captain Frank, Nash, and John. Their routine is strict and almost mechanical. They spend 90 days at a time in deep sleep and wake only for a day or two to make sure the ship is healthy. Systems stable, course correct, no warnings flashing in the dark corridors. By the time the film begins, they've already made it halfway, but the constant cycles of hibernation are starting to take a toll. This time, when John wakes, he feels noticeably weaker, mentally foggy in a way he hasn't experienced before. Even simple memories slip through his fingers, like the last name of his girlfriend, Zoe Morgan, something he should never forget. Captain Frank and Nash soon wake as well. They go through their usual motions: a bit of exercise, a shower to shake off the stiffness, then a full diagnostic of the ship. John tries to act normal, but the unease stays with him. It's only when he sits down for the routine radio check, focusing hard to clear the lingering haze, that the missing memory slides back into place. Zoe Morgan. Hearing her name in his mind again gives him a brief, shaky sense of relief. The film moves back and forth between 2 timelines. One follows John and the crew on their dangerous journey through space. The other takes us to the past, back to the moment John first joined the mission and met Zoe, a scientist whose research also played a major role in the project. John and Zoe had grown close during the selection process. She fell for him quickly, and he felt the same. But John was the kind of man who always put the mission first. Now, drifting in the silence of space, those memories cut deeper than ever. He's not just remembering her, he's realizing how much he regrets leaving. The crew had been warned before launch that the drugs used for deep sleep could cause disorientation and memory issues. So John tries to convince himself his confusion is nothing more than a side effect. Still, the guilt stays with him. The 3 of them send a scheduled report to Houston. Though the communication delay is massive now, they're far beyond the range of real-time contact. From John's tone alone, Houston can tell he's deeply troubled and unusually emotional. Once their tasks are done, the crew returns to hibernation for another 90-day cycle. But when John wakes the next time, something feels immediately wrong. He hears faint noises echoing through the ship. Before he can react, a sudden jolt shakes the entire structure, and a loose panel crashes into his head, knocking him out cold. When he finally regains consciousness, Captain Frank and Nash are already awake. They explain that John actually came out of sleep earlier than they did, so whatever happened, he was the only one who might have seen it. The recorded footage offers no answers. Every camera seems to have glitched at the same critical moment. They run a full diagnostic on the ship, but nothing suggests a major malfunction. Nash, however, is rattled. He fears that if even a small structural weakness exists, the slingshot maneuver could tear the ship apart when Saturn's gravity grabs hold. Captain Frank wants none of his panic. He's a strict, uncompromising leader, and Nash's anxiety irritates him. To Frank, fear equals weakness. Frank turns to John, the mission specialist, and demands a clear answer. Is the ship still capable of performing the slingshot? John checks the data carefully this time. Every reading suggests they're still within safe limits, so he confirms it. They can handle the maneuver. That's all Frank needs to hear. He refuses to turn back, arguing that abandoning the mission now would be pointless. If they return home and engineers discover nothing's actually wrong with the ship, they'll have wasted years and jeopardized humanity's only chance at survival. Nash, still terrified, insists they're heading toward disaster. But Frank stands firm. They're already too close to Titan, too invested, too far gone. For him, retreat isn't an option. The mission continues. When Nash realizes the captain won't take his fears seriously, he approaches John in secret. Whispering urgently, he suggests a risky plan. They should reprogram their sleep pods to wake up 12 hours earlier than the captain. That way, before Frank opens his eyes, they can alter the slingshot calculations and redirect the ship back toward Earth instead of Titan. John refuses at first. What Nash is proposing borders on mutiny, and John isn't willing to betray the chain of command. But Nash keeps pushing, fear creeping through every word, and eventually convinces John to help. John reluctantly gives him his access code. What they don't know is that Captain Frank has been watching and listening from the bridge the entire time. The crew returns to deep sleep. When they wake this time, 12 hours ahead of schedule, the side effects are even worse. Their muscles feel weak, coordination is off, and the hallucinations grow stronger. John even sees flashes of Zoe as if she's standing right beside him. Nash, however, is focused on one thing: change the trajectory before the captain wakes. Saturn looms huge outside the windows, beautiful and terrifying at the same time, and the distorted view only heightens their panic. But when the moment comes, John backs out. He can't bring himself to sabotage the mission. Nash snaps at him in frustration, and their argument quickly escalates. That's when Captain Frank appears. He steps into the room like he has been expecting this all along. Because he has. After overhearing their plan, he quietly altered his own sleep schedule and woke up early. The sight of him freezes Nash completely. Whatever courage he had evaporates instantly. Frank leans in and says something cold, something sharp enough to shake Nash to his core. Nash immediately retreats and starts running diagnostics, hands trembling. Earlier, Nash had told John a disturbing story about an Antarctic station called T-Tor. According to him, the crew there wanted to evacuate, but their captain refused. When they disobeyed, he supposedly killed every one of them. Now that story crawls back into Nash's mind, feeding a terrible suspicion. Maybe their own captain could do the same. Frank understands Nash is losing control, and he also knows John isn't desperate to return home in the same way Nash is. So he reaches out to John instead. Calm, steady, almost friendly. The mission, he claims, can still continue without Nash's cooperation. Titan is close. Their goal is within reach, and turning back now isn't an option. Frank needs just one loyal crew member to see this through. And John, whether he likes it or not, becomes that person. One day, John starts thinking about repairing the section of the ship that was damaged during the earlier incident. But every time he imagines going outside for the repair, a wave of fear stops him. He keeps picturing himself drifting into open space, lost forever. So he puts the idea aside, for now. Soon, the moment arrives that Nash had been dreading for months, the slingshot around Saturn. The ship races toward the giant planet's gravity well, and for a few tense minutes, the entire crew braces for the worst. But the maneuver works flawlessly. The ship holds together, the systems remain stable, and all three of them survive the extreme forces. With the most dangerous part behind them, Titan is now only a few months away. The crew celebrates quietly, relieved to still be alive. But for John, the celebration feels hollow. His hallucinations of Zoe are becoming stronger and more frequent, slipping into his thoughts even when he tries to stay focused. The crew returns to deep sleep again. 90 days later, when they wake, John's condition is even worse. His body is weaker, his mind foggier, and the hallucinations have begun to consume him. Nash isn't doing any better. His nerves have snapped, and he's spiraling into full paranoia. Only the captain remains steady, unmoved, refusing to let fear interfere with the mission. One day, John is running frantically down the corridor, chasing the image of Zoe he believes he sees. Captain Frank catches him and says firmly but not unkindly that Zoe is not on this ship. The comment shocks John. He never told anyone about his relationship with Zoe, no one except Nash. Meanwhile, Nash has practically taken residence inside the reactor room. His mind is slipping fast. He's convinced the mission is doomed and that they'll all die in space. When John visits him, the first thing he asks is whether Nash told the captain about Zoe. Nash insists he didn't. Instead, he keeps repeating that the ship's numbers don't add up, that something is deeply wrong, and they may never reach Titan. But when John grabs Nash's tablet to check those numbers, he finds nothing on the screen. Just like John, Nash is hallucinating, imagining data that isn't there, hearing strange sounds, muttering under his breath. Eventually, both of them head to the bridge where Captain Frank is already waiting. He asks Nash for a status report, and Nash immediately claims that the systems have serious errors. The captain listens without emotion. He already checked the diagnostics himself, and what Nash said is partly true. The ship's power levels have dropped by 20%. Then Frank turns to John and asks for his assessment. John struggles to give a clear answer. His mind is too clouded. The captain finally lays out what he has discovered. The system error wasn't natural. Someone intentionally altered the controls. The last login before the malfunction was John's. John is stunned. He swears he didn't sabotage anything. The captain explains calmly that John is right. He didn't do it. But he did give his passcode to Nash, and Nash used that access to interfere with the ship's systems, hoping to sabotage the mission and force a return to Earth. Hearing this leaves John speechless. Nash's desperation has gone much further than he realized. What happens next is something John never expected. Captain Frank suddenly pulls out a gun, a shocking sight on a spacecraft where even a small breach could destroy everything. John can't understand how a weapon even made it aboard. The captain simply says they anticipated the possibility of danger long before the mission began, and he will do whatever it takes to complete this mission. He orders both John and Nash back into their sleep pods. They comply, though uneasily. John enters his pod first, but before the drug puts him under, he catches a horrifying glimpse. Captain Frank shoots Nash. 90 days later, John awakens again, weak, disoriented, and barely able to stand. His first thought is Nash. Overwhelmed with worry, he searches the ship, but Nash is nowhere. Instead, he finds Captain Frank, calm as ever. John asks what happened to Nash. The captain answers in a steady voice, "I put him to sleep. He lost his way, but you're still loyal, and that means we can be friends." To reinforce his version of the truth, Frank brings up the story of the Tor station again. But this time, his account is completely different from Nash's. According to the captain, the Antarctic crew weren't victims of their commander. They were mutineers who attacked him. He claims the commander tried to protect them, but they turned violent and eventually ended their own lives. John challenges him. "What about the autopsies? Every one of them died from gunshot wounds." Frank barely flinches. "They did that to themselves." The captain's calm certainty slowly chips away at John's resistance. Bit by bit, John finds himself sliding back toward obedience, trying to believe that Frank is telling the truth. While checking the ship's systems, John suddenly feels an intense sensation in his right hand. It swells rapidly, skin stretching, fingers deforming, until his entire arm seems to collapse. But then, in a sickening wave, he realizes none of it is real. Just another hallucination carving into his mind. From that moment forward, John becomes jumpy and nervous. Captain Frank notices and asks what's wrong. John refuses to talk about it. The captain responds with his usual refrain, "Zoe isn't here." John tries to cut him off, but Frank presses harder. He finally reveals something that detonates John's world. "Your relationship with Zoe was never real. She was an evaluator, hired by the committee to test your emotional stability. NASA doesn't hand over a mission like this to just anyone." The words hit John like a physical blow. His anger erupts instantly. He calls the captain a liar, but Frank counters by reminding him of every moment he met Zoe, how she appeared exactly when he needed her, how the timing was too perfect, how every encounter seemed designed rather than accidental. And suddenly, it all does seem possible, maybe even logical. Every place Zoe showed up had been too convenient to be coincidence. John's entire emotional foundation begins to shake. Captain Frank manages to calm John down again, reminding him that nothing matters more than the mission. If John loses control like Nash did, they'll both die out here. John, exhausted and unstable, accepts the warning. During a routine radio check, something unexpected happens. John hears a voice from Houston. Convinced he finally has real contact, he reports everything. The hallucinations, the sabotage, the fear. But when he returns to the bridge, Captain Frank shows him the recorded feed. There was no voice. John had been talking to himself the entire time. His hallucinations are now overwhelming reality. From that moment, the captain never lets go of his gun. Despite that, he insists he doesn't want to hurt John. He tries one last time to reason with him. The mission depends on the two of us. Just sleep now. When we wake up, we'll already be on Titan. John agrees reluctantly. The captain intends to sedate him first, but as John slowly walks forward, fear takes over. Instead of entering the pod, he locks himself inside a nearby chamber. He desperately wants to know if Nash is still alive. Frank tells him he can't wake Nash's pod, but John is welcome to look for himself. John hurries to the sleeping bay, but as soon as he opens the chamber, he launches a sudden attack on the captain. The two struggle violently in the narrow corridor. John manages to wrestle the gun away and injures Frank severely. The captain collapses, unconscious. Back on the bridge, John tries to locate Nash, but when he checks the system logs, something impossible appears. The system reports that Nash is on the bridge. Confused, John asks again. The system repeats the answer. Then he checks the crew manifest. Only one person was assigned to this mission: Captain John Franks Nash. In that moment, memories begin to rearrange in John's mind. He realizes the truth. Throughout the entire journey, he's been hallucinating the captain and Nash. He has been alone on this ship from the start. John, now completely alone, tries the radio again, hoping someone, anyone, will answer. This time, he hears a familiar voice. Zoe. She tells him something shocking. According to her, John was never actually launched into space. Before the real mission, he was placed inside a simulation, and an accident caused the simulation pod to collapse underground. He isn't on a spaceship. He's trapped below the surface, and rescue teams are trying to dig him out. She urges him to open the airlock and step outside. If you just walk out, she says gently, you'll reach the surface. We can bring you home. John wants desperately to believe her. Everything she says fits the comforting version of reality his mind has been clinging to. So he walks toward the airlock, convinced Zoe is finally guiding him to safety. But behind him, Captain Frank regains consciousness. Bleeding and barely able to stand, he pleads with John, not with anger, but with raw fear. He insists the truth is the opposite of what Zoe said. They are still in deep space, thousands of kilometers from Titan, and if John opens the airlock, he will die instantly. But John no longer trusts anything the captain says. In his mind, Frank is part of the hallucination, while Zoe feels like the only real voice left. He opens the airlock. For a moment, it looks exactly like Zoe promised. The ship appears buried in soil, slowly rising toward daylight. John takes a step forward, believing he's climbing out of the collapsed pod. But then, a memory snaps into place. A single stray detail Zoe mentioned. Something that shouldn't have made sense. And in that instant, the illusion breaks. The ground around him dissolves into the silent blackness of space. The comforting simulation shatters and reality hits him with full force. He is outside the ship, exposed to the vacuum. John drifts away, weightless, and dies. Captain Frank had been right all along. John's deteriorating mind had created a false world, an emotional safety net to avoid accepting the crushing isolation of the mission. His hallucinations grew so powerful that even the final moment felt real to him. Now, only the captain remains aboard the crippled spacecraft. But with the systems failing and no one left to assist him, it's clear he won't survive for long. The mission is effectively over, and with that bleak, haunting realization, Slingshot comes to an end.